Hey everyone, it's Talia here, and welcome to my channel, Tally's Chair. We're going to be doing a full glam makeover look on our model Bethany. Yes. And we're going to get started. So Bethany has already popped in her contacts off camera, and we're about to apply a face primer by Florrie Roberts called Shine Away. It's an excellent primer because it's mattifying and it does keep the oil at bay. When you apply your primer, you want to make sure apply it in those areas that matter most. Center of the forehead, down the nose, top of the cheeks, and even in the eyebrows, because sometimes your brows can get a bit oily during the day. As we continue to prep and prepare our face for a makeup application, the next thing you want to remember is to prime the lips as well. We will be priming her lips with a little bit of Vaseline just to make sure that her lips maintain the moisture. And this will also help to lift any dead skin that may be on the top of her lips. For this makeup look, I'm going to be starting with her eyebrows. And the first thing we're going to do is groom the brows. I'm using a spoolie just to make sure the brows are combed up and in the natural direction. And I'm going to begin by filling in her eyebrows using a pencil. I'm using the NYX 931, that's the black brown pencil from NYX. As I fill in her eyebrows, I like to fill it in using strokes, hair strokes. As you can see, little hair strokes just to mimic her natural brows. And this ensures that the brows look as natural as possible and not too pasty. So we fill in all the empty spaces with hair strokes beginning from the beginning and going all the way through. Using my spoolie just to comb some of that product in. If you wish, you can add powder to the eyebrows. You can also use a brow powder, brow pomade. Any of these products work just as good. When you're filling in your eyebrows, you want to make sure that it's lined up properly. That is the beginning of the brow and the tail of the brow. It's not spilling over too much, but ends right at the upper outer corner of the eyes. Absolutely love doing eyebrows. I feel like once your brows are properly balanced, properly filled in, you have the right shade pencil, chances are you won't go wrong with your makeover. So you'll see me here spending a lot of time on making sure that these brows are absolutely perfect, and I think we got it. All pencil. Right here, I'm just going into the brow with a brow gel. This is going to help the brows stay in place. And I like using this product too because this allows me to comb her brow hairs in a specific direction. Once we're happy with our eyebrows, the shape and the color, we could go on to concealing our eyebrows. I'm using a flat traditional concealer brush. I know a lot of people use the angle brush, but I feel like the concealer brush is still a better tool to apply your concealer because If you look at the brush, the top, the shape of the bristles, they're flat, it's nice and rounded, and I'm able to easily draw along my eyebrows and maintain the shape that I already have. So for a concealer, I'm using the LA Girl, and this would have been Toffee as a concealer underneath the eyebrows. And I do sometimes like to mix my concealer with other products. In this case, I'm using the P. Louise base. And this is one of the tinted bases from P. Louise. And even with this base, the bases from P. Louise are so good that you can use them as a concealer to shape the brows. Or you can mix them with your concealer, or you can mix them with foundation to create a base. Once you're applying your concealer, you want to make sure that the concealer is flat, even against the skin, and it's as if you're creating a set of skin, a new set of skin over the top of your eyelids. So that's the eyeshadow base and the P. Louise that I use. You want to make sure you get a good amount of it. You don't want it too heavy, but you don't want to see any skin peeping through. My advice too is to make sure that you really take your time when you're going very close to the eyebrows, just to prevent your brush getting into your eyebrows and not having to correct or start over again. And as you can see, the base spills right onto the side of the nose. And on the outside of the eyes, it spills onto the side of the cheek. You want to make sure all of that area is covered with eyeshadow base. Now, once you're satisfied with your base, then we can move on to eyeshadow. For this eyeshadow look, I'm going to be using eyeshadow palettes from Juvias Place. I was about to say Juvia's Palace, but it's Juvias Place. And this is the beige palette. And I'm setting underneath her eyebrows using a very nude, natural color. And this is one of the first rules in makeup, guys. Anything that's cream, we set it with a powder. And in this case, I'm using eyeshadow to set underneath the eyebrows. Just on top of it, I'm going to go with a little shimmer just to pull out her brow bone so that it stands out just a little once we apply the rest of her eyeshadow. So I'm just going in with eyeshadow, a nice neutral shade just above the crease of her eye and slightly under her brow bone, sweeping that right into the nose. And as you will see, I'll sweep a little of that into her eyebrows as well. So what's important is to make sure that our crease has a very natural shade so that we can create a natural transition from one color to the next. And what's important is the blending. So I'm using a medium round brush just to blend the eyeshadow, the first two colors that I'm using. I'm being very light in how I touch her eyes with that eyeshadow. Of course, I did speed up the video just to kind of maximize time. But you can apply eyeshadow and you can keep applying until you're satisfied with the depth and range of color. I'm now going in with some warmer tones from the Inglot Freedom System. And I'm just blotting it on initially just to drop that color where I want it. And once I have the color where I want it, then I'm using circular motions to blend that product or that color into the last color that I applied. And as you need more color, you blot or drop that color onto the area, pushing it into the skin, and then you use a round circular motion to blend. And this is very important if you want nice eyeshadow that transitions easy from one color to the next. And here you're going to see me back and forth, blending, adding color, comparing the eyes to make sure that it's even, that it's balanced, that one eye doesn't have more color than the other. And I will be back and forth, just looking, applying until I'm absolutely satisfied. Once I'm happy with that color, then I'm applying more color. A deeper color, a darker color, and starting from the outer part of the eyes. And you must remember that wherever the brush touches the skin first is where we're going to see most of that color. So we want to start from the outside because we want the outside to be the deepest in terms of intensity. And like we did before, we're going to add, blot, and blend. Truth be told, I feel like your eye work can really take up like a lot of this time, most of your time, because I think that's where it is, in the eyes. We often hear the eyes are the windows to the soul. And I feel as if once you get that blend or the selection of color right, you just definitely can't go wrong with the makeup. So I say you blend until you're absolutely satisfied or that you're at peace with what you're doing with your eye makeup. And so you'll see I'll be back and forth. I'm now back in my highlight, making sure that there's a blended, soft transition where you can't tell when one color starts and where the other color ends. I also want to say this is where your skill level comes in terms of being able to assess a person's eyes and give them what they need. in terms of making their eye more flattering, or there may be certain features about the eye that you either want to play up or play down. And so you must be able to see in the first instance what it is that you need to be able to do to these eyes. If the eyes are puffy, you need to know what shades or what colors to use. Also the medium, whether it's something shiny, something dull, matte. You need to be able to make the right selection as a makeup artist. Now we're about to put the eye makeup over the ball of the eye, over the mobile lid. And we're going to begin by using the Inglot acoustics. They're very, very good, highly pigmented. And these are shimmery and they come in different shades. So I'm using, it's like a lilac shade over the lids of Bethany. Very silvery looking. And then I want to blend this out. I'm not going for a cut crease per se. And so I'm just going to blend out the edges of that base. To have a nice blended look around the edges. Now we're about to set this base with eyeshadows from our Juvias Place and using our Inglot crystals. I'm using a nice flat dome-shaped brush. Over her lids. And once you're satisfied with your eyeshadow, we can apply the liquid liner. This is going to come in very handy when it's time to apply our lashes, so that we can know how close we need to go to our lash line. But liquid liners are also very important because it can make or break an eye look. If you have a client with eyes very small or very small mobile lid, putting on a very thick liner that's overpowering can sometimes make the eyes not so flattering. So you have to be very careful how thick you go with your liquid liner. As for the wingtip, not everyone can pull it off, because if you have sagging lids on the sagging skin on the side, your wing can look like a broken wing, and we don't want that. It's important that you keep your line extremely straight, nice and neat. I also think that neat makeup really makes for good makeup. So now it's time for the face. So I begin by prepping, making sure, again, because it's been a few minutes now, since we applied our primer. So I would just want to make sure that her face is nice and ready to receive any foundation by dusting off any excess eyeshadow that would have fallen on top of her face. And if you feel the need to apply just a little more primer, you can do so just before you put your foundation on. So I'm using the foundation Eau Chocolate from Black Opal. And in applying foundations, you want to make sure that foundation is as close to the skin as possible. It's okay even if it's a shade darker, but you want to make sure that the undertone is right. That is, you don't want to put a red base or a warm undertone foundation on someone with a yellow tone, and vice versa. You really want to get it as close as possible. And it's okay to mix as an artist, to mix foundations to get what you need. Some very good brands provide mixes and tints that you can add to foundations to get them where you need them to be. If you haven't found the perfect brand or a perfect mix of brands to work for you. So I'm using my concealer brush like around the edges of her brows because it's such a small area. I really want to make sure that I get really close and keep it very neat. I'm also using a concealer brush to brush in between her eyebrows and around her eyes because the area is so small and tight. And I'm just laying that foundation, just resting that foundation there where I need it. Cleaning up around the eyes, getting really tight. And you can see me going over the brow area. And just trying to cover as much surface as possible. Once that's done, I use this medium-sized brush. It isn't very big. And I like this brush because it's nice and dense. It's not too little, bristles aren't too long. And it's still small enough that I can still get into some tight spaces around her eyes. I use this brush to really blend in and cover the surface area of her face. I like working with Black Opal foundations. In particular, this pump that they have, Pore Perfecting Pump. I love the finish. I love the range of shades that they have. I definitely like the finish. I love the finish. This is a matte formula. Again, especially because my model has oily skin, I want to be mindful of that. We're going in now with a stick from Inglot to help us sculpt and contour our face, bring back the natural shapes of our face. I see I already have a concealer down the center of her nose. We're going to work on contouring her face. We're also going to take that sticker down the nose, down the sides of the highlight. And it also depends on the shape of your nose. It'll also determine how you would contour your nose. So Bethany has a bit of a bubble nose, so you want to make sure she has more of a tip at the front of her nose. So we're going to put that tip in. We've already blended most of her contouring with a brush. That same medium brush is what I like to use with a mix of a blending sponge. And I'm being very intentional now with this contour down the nose. Because this makeup application is for photos and video, we went a little more dramatic. But if this makeup was to be worn out in the daylight, I would definitely soften that highlight over the top of her nose. And we could even soften the contour just a little bit if it was to be worn in daylight and for every day. So that blending sponge you see I use over her nose, I use that on the face as well, just to make sure the foundation looks nice and seamless. I also use that blending sponge for her concealer as well. At this point, we're using a highlighting powder, and this powder should be from Sacha Buttercup, and we're just using this very lightly underneath her eyes, taking it up to the temples, on the chin, forehead, and I like to brush a little bit of this into the eyebrows. And then we're going to take this down the nose. Just brushing me the excess around the nose. And she's coming together nicely. We're also going to take some of this highlight down the bottom of the face, along the jaw. And I like this product because it really leaves like a nice softness over the face. So even if you don't use concealer and you just use the product by itself, it can still give you that highlighted effect. So we're going to set this foundation, and I'm using a very big, fat, fluffy brush, and I'm using powder. a loose powder from Black Opal to set her foundation. And as you can see my technique, I'm not necessarily using a circular motion, but I'm pressing and pushing with that powder into the face because I don't want to move my foundation. I want to take away as much tackiness as possible from the foundation to give a nice matte finish. So right now I'm taking away now any excess powders. Highlighting powders from around the face. And as I go in with my brush, I go in with a little bit of powder on the brush, just to make sure that when my brush touches the skin, that it's a nice smooth buffing experience. And so the more we put powder on, we see how nice and matte her skin looks. For those of us that want a nice matte finish. So we're going to go in now and set our contour as well, and bring in some of that warmth back around the sides of the face, top of the forehead. Always remembering to begin at the back of the face and then work our way forward into the center of the face with our contouring powder. Whether this contouring powder is a darker powder that you use, or a powder that it's been set aside for contouring, or even an eyeshadow or a blush that you may be using to contour, it doesn't matter. You make sure to start from the back of the face and work your way forward. When you contour too, I find that it's always best to start off with a lighter shade and then work your way to a darker tone. And blend, 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 blend. For my contour, I'm using Juvias Place. I think that's the Warrior 2 palette. And I'm going in with the oil blocking from Black Opal, just to soften any areas that need to be softened. So right here, I'm just taking off any excess, more excess, really taking out the excess now. As I think we've let her bake a lot enough. And we're gonna add our glow over the top part of her cheeks. And this you have to be very specific in where we apply it. And then we want to blend. Feather out the edges so that it's just not sitting on top of her face, or it looks like a line on top of her face. And then I'm using a smaller brush for this to make sure we get the glow right, because it's a very small area that we're working with. And we're using the masterchrome from Maybelline. As our highlighting powder. And I like using highlighters too because it adds sheen back to the face. And you could put it in specific areas. So now we're gonna clean up alongside the nose, and we're gonna add a contouring powder, nothing too dark, because we want this contour to look as natural as possible. And we're gonna brush some of that into the eyebrows as well. Yeah, she's a bit of a talker. Now we're gonna move on to those lips. Bethany has nice full lips. And I just wanted to play up the natural shape of her lips. Using this dark brown from LA Girl, which I love, to outline her lips at first. And then we feather this inward, going straight around the lips. I learned this technique from Sam Fine, and I'm talking years ago, and I just have never done away with it. I just like it as a nice way to apply lip liner. We're going in with a medium tone just beneath that darker shade. Mixing it with that darker shade at the bottom. And we're going to put a nice neutral tone in the middle. Nice, soft, natural lip tone. And notice we're keeping our top lip a bit darker, because naturally that's how our lips are. Darker. And then the bottom lip maybe darker around the edges and a little lighter in the center. So with my pencil, I'm just blending and softening. Let me put a little bit more color right in the center of that bottom lip. So we're just pulling out the natural shades and tones of her lips. And now we're going to finish up her eyes. You notice we didn't put any mascara or anything on it. No, because with all the powder dusting and whatnot, we don't want to get too much mascara for our lashes to get too clumpy. So we're just cleaning and clearing our lashes before we apply the strip onto her eyes. Even though Bethany has a nice set of lashes, natural lashes. Comb in the bottoms. And we're looking good. And so with the Inglot, I like to go over the Inglot, over the liner with a little bit of that black liner, black gel liner from Inglot. And I'm just finishing up with the liquid liner on this other one. And the other one. You just want to make sure those liners are nice and clean, nice and black before we finish up. Giving her a black liner on the tear line. Sorry about that, guys. Can't see what I'm doing. But we're making sure to take that from one end of the eye right into the inner corner for a nice smooth finish. And there you go. We popped on her lashes off camera. She's wearing some nice 25 millimeters. Makeup is done. And she looks fabulous. Nice natural makeup. Nice natural glam. And fabulous lashes. And so if applying makeup is the thing you want to do and you really want to get into it, I say send me an email and you can inquire and I can let you know more about classes we have for the rest of the year. Thank you so much, Bethany. You did a great job. And there you have it. If you haven't already done so, you can subscribe to my channel, like this video, feel free to share it. You can give me any feedbacks that you may have on the video, on the application. and it was indeed my pleasure. Love doing makeup and love doing Bethany's makeup. She was a great model. Thank you guys.